Hello, that's me again. Today is the January 23, and I am making this report a little bit later than usual, but I think so it's going to be forgiven by you guys, so, and you can always catch up if you missed it, so next day. However, let's get to our goals, so to speak. And no, I'm not going to be talking about special military operation from the point of view of tactics, because it's boring and it's absolutely nauseating. Russians continue to advance on along the whole front line, and so I don't see many of the Western media writing about those thousands of square kilometers which Russians returned, to their possession, so to speak, since the time they were basically, screaming about it when Russia absolutely, sensibly from the operation strategic point of view withdrew from Kharkov area and from Kherson. But hey, if CNN doesn't say so, it's not news, right? Anyhow, let me start with what is much more important, and it deals with strategic level. And strategic level not only militarily, it's a strategic level of the level of government and state or nation control, and how you manage the whole nation. So, and I will start with this very simple thing here. When you have some issues with attracting audience, guess what you need to do? You always go and produce like top 10 of something, top 10 worst movies, top 10 best fighter planes, top 10, most beautiful women, top 10 ugliest men. So it's all has to be top 10 because it's absolutely appeals to human psychology for our desire to rank things. And, most of those ratings, of course, are full of shit crap, which nobody should have taken seriously. But, you know what, they attract audience, but some of them make sense, others make sense, semi-make sense, or what have you. But that's one of the ratings I ended up observing recently. I don't remember even what site was this. It was, again, something related to the American education, and it was the rank by U.S. News and World Report, I believe, which was ranking nations by the level of the highest technological expertise. Top 10 nations. Obviously, this rating, as always, is complete malarkey and baloney, because one has to look at it and say, what the hell? With all deep respect, for example, for Switzerland, and I love Swiss watch, I have two, I don't know how Swiss really qualify for the highest technological expertise, because I can understand totally, for example, Japan, even South Korea, but Singapore, and I've already discussed this rating before, but having said all that, at least Russia isn't there, and the United States isn't there. But obviously, even the publication in the U.S. News and World Report, and we discussed it in one of my videos, this topic admits that the United States actually is really falling behind dramatically in terms of the STEM education, and we know that a lot of those STEM guys are not Americans, like classic Anglo-Saxon Americans or Native Americans, what have you. You are talking primarily Asian guys. Let's be honest about it. Most of them are guys with Chinese, Japanese, or any other Asian backgrounds, and that's who usually America sends out there to all kinds of the Olympiads amongst school guys and school children, including high school. But I don't remember, don't quote me on that, but I believe that most of the PhD work in physics in the United States are done with the people with Chinese and other Asian names. So there's nothing wrong with that. People are bright. They do what they do. But what I'm saying is that the classic American white population is not performing that well at all. But here we can see in this rating that Japan is obviously, very high on this rating. And when you begin to talk about it, what those ratings really mean and what technological expertise is, Let me demonstrate something why I am on the record, actually ad nauseam, for many years, very many years. Officially almost a decade, in reality much longer. Than basically all those ratings, all those economic indices, and all those assessments are basically crap. I wrote my first book, which was pretty successful, precisely about it, that basically most of what the information indices and assessments are presented in the West about Russia and the West itself is crap. It's primarily garbage. It's, you know, garbage in, garbage out. But here's the demonstration. You see this? This is called Japan's regional airliner, which was called Space Jet. Actually, initially it was called MRJ, but then it was renamed Space Jet, and it was Mitsubishi's attempt to break into the commercial aviation market with this jet. Well, you should obviously know that Japan, which of course has a significant aerospace industry, they planned and built this aircraft primarily with aluminum, and obviously it was designed to have Pratt and Whitney 1200 engines, and primarily was done you know, with the almost Western European and American systems on it. Well, so some news about this airliner should be kept, so to speak, in perspective. And here's the news, very recent ones, in April 2022, and Mitsubishi SpaceJet has first of its prototypes dismantled, and manufacturer also shut down the original Jet's flight test center that operated in Moses Lake, United States. It also shuts down pretty much the whole company, which was making these 2 or 3 prototypes, and basically they fired 95% of personnel. That is the end of the Japanese technological expertise in this field, which is, of course, one of the most important fields in human activity, and commercial airspace is the indicator of the development of the nation. But here we are. Japan, since 2008, has never been able to lift this jet literally off the ground and turn it into their serial production item. And yes, Japanese make some amazing things, and they used to make some amazing things too, engineering-wise, but United States actually broke down the economy in 80s, and Japanese remember that. But they still continue, of course, to produce wonderful cars, the best cars in the world, actually, undeniably. And they produce a lot of very wonderful gizmos and things of this nature. So Japanese are definitely technologically extremely advanced people. They make excellent submarines. They make very decent ships, actually, and very decent electronics. But here it is, commercial airspace, and guess what? Japan is nowhere near in the big league. In related news, however, if you look at this, this is 2000 Tu-214, which Russia is now undertaking the serial production. There is some issue with Aeroflot, which wants 2 people in the cockpit. Russians say actually 3 people are not bad either, but Aeroflot will be made to make up its mind pretty soon, because Russians already have all those planes ready to go in 3 people in the cockpit configuration. As you can see yourself, there are all kinds of Russian things everywhere, including wonderful PS90A and other modifications of PS90A. It's a wonderful turbofan engine. It's all Russian made, so Russians produce this. And of course you can see yourself Sukhoi Superjet, which is also a Russian thing, and it's getting ready to be completely Russified, including its engine, PD-8. Instead of SAM 146, which was the joint venture between the Russian and French companies, and now it's completely Russian made. The first one should fly this year. Everything Russian, from avionics to engine to auxiliary power unit and things of this nature. And of course you can see this. This is a MS-21 with PD-14 engines, and it's basically the airplane with delivery of Russian famous airline Russia. So, and as you can see yourself, Russia produces this, and she produces a truckload of the other big planes like IL-76 and even unique planes B-200, BE-200. And when you look at this, it's like, yeah, that is very interesting, because obviously Japan, for all its magnificent technological talent, and no denial of that, magnificent, they still haven't been able to come up with that, with their own even regional jet, while Russia produces everything pretty much, including even the wide body but 4-engine jets, which you can see Mr. Putin flying around, IL-96-300, and it's probably going to be by 2027 IL-96 something with the PD-35 engines once they go into serial production after receiving the type certificate. So there you go. These are your rankings, and I always say that, yeah, when you begin to rank things, look up primarily what is behind those rankings. It's like a Brazilian Embraer, which is a wonderful company, a wonderful planes, and true national pride of Brazilians, absolutely legitimate. There was only one problem. They cannot come up with the engine which will power this Embraer series, all kinds of them, and guess what those engines are? Of course, they're Pratt & Whitney's, Rolls-Royces, and what have you. They are all made in the West. Unlike it is with Russia, who produces her own engines. And this is just one of the examples of what I'm constantly on record and trying to press people in understanding those simple things. They do not look what they are presented in, especially Western media, because Western media are basically morons. And here is the interesting situation. Just to demonstrate to you to what degree West miscalculated, and they didn't want to really start attacking Russia militarily. They thought that, hey, that was small, Russian economy, 2%, so we will introduce those 11 packages of sanctions and Russians will collapse. Well, obviously that is true, but other way around, and we have obviously the European economy, which is suffering tremendously and eventually will be completely obliterated as the high-tech advanced economy. Not that it wasn't going down the drain anyway, because we have the situation with the general crisis of the neoliberal economic model. It just doesn't work. But it is what it is. And let me show you something which, for example, RT reported today, and I will start explaining to you what we are dealing here with. And RT reported this. Look at this. And of course, we're again talking about UK Royal United Services Institute. A top British think tank has revealed Russia's cyber warfare dominance over Ukraine. Why has Western media ignored its report? Well, the answer to this is very simple. Because media people, 99.99% of them, they're utterly incompetent, uncultured, and uneducated people. They only know how to sell themselves and the stories, many of which they simply make up. The real journalists, the real people with the ability to investigate things and honestly report on them, they are far in between nowadays. It's a very deficit. We have a huge deficit of serious professional journalists, and obviously Western media are absolutely morons. I am on record, I'm sorry, the guys, that the worst of the human garbage goes there. They take those degrees which anybody with IQ about room temperature can get, and they go out and they think that they know shit. They don't know anything, let alone they don't know anything related to the serious economy, industrial economy, and warfare. None of them. And the same goes for the those Royal Institute, of the United Service Institute, which suddenly woke up just recently and started to scream about the return of the industrial warfare. Well, guys, that what tells you about the level of the competence of those people, which is not very high. And again, when you look at what UK presents in terms of military thought, it's pathetic, really. It's really ridiculous. And here we have to go back to this, what this RUSI, United Kingdom, United Service Institute they talk about this backward Ruskies having this advanced electronic warfare, advanced air defense systems, advanced air forces and things of this nature. And let me start with this technological expertise and industrial expertise. It was already in 2018 when, and I showed you this report by on the orders by Mr. Trump, who was at that time President of the United States. It was the report assessing and strengthening the manufacturing and defense industrial base and supply chain resiliency of the United States. It was a horrifying report. In fact, I would say that was a lot of autopsy there on the basically what was at that time already a corpse of the industrializing United States. And this, you can easily find this report and start reading about it, and it's terrifying in terms of explanation of how far back United States fallen. But then of course we have also this report already 3 years later, and it was called Fiscal Year 2020. That was a report of the DoD, Department of Defense, to Congress, U.S. Congress. And it was very grim for United States in terms of their industrial capability. And this is what they were talking about. And they were talking about that how the DoD basically, still American army and armed forces for some reason remain the most powerful in the world. It is leading defense industry companies are still global leaders in weapons, innovations, and productions. Likewise, the Department of Defense is still the colossus of the federal system, the single buyer of goods in the U.S. government. But then, of course, after they introduced this typical bullshit. I don't know how the most powerful in the world American military is when it loses all its force, but then again, it's their, basically the level, intellectual level of modern Washington and modern US media. However, even then, already, it was about a year and a half before the start of the special military operation, they speak again. America will face a growing and likely permanent national security deficit. And they explain that what needs to be done. And what needs to be done, those reports have one common logic. This common logic is for everything good against everything bad. And they propose things which, as I already stated, even the people with their, some signs of retardation, mental retardation, will figure out on their own. Yet they say, look at this, what we need to do. Restore our defense industrial base and supply chains to the United States and to allies, starting with microelectronics, and restore our shipbuilding base. I told you, it's all everything against bad, everything bad, and for everything good. And then, of course, they admit even then that singling out four major trends, the most major trend which they figure out or single out is the fact that steady deindustrialization of the United States over the past 5 decades, including workforce and manufacturing innovation. From 40% of the U.S. gross domestic product in 1960s, manufacturing has shrunk to less than 12%. And there is no surprise that it happens, because we have to understand that economic model itself sucks. I mean, basically, pretty much every economic statistics you are being provided today, it's cooking of the books, basically. GDP is the worthless measure, especially since GDP in Western economic universe, alternative universe, I might say, counts also their expenditures, which actually subtract from their GDP. But hey, if they redefined it this way, so more power to them. But why I'm talking about these things? Well, after those series of reports, believe me, I showed you just a very small share of it. In reality, there were a number of them, DoD to Congress, Government Accountability Office, and people just speaking about, oh my God, we're sinking, we are done, and the United States is deindustrialized. Well, yeah, has been deindustrializing since Clinton's administration, but, and Just recently, we discussed the Center for the Strategic and International Studies paper about this Taiwan thing, which was, of course, well, interesting. The game, the invasion of China, of Taiwan, but suddenly they produce another one. And here's the latest one, which was released yesterday, and it is again Center for Strategic and International Studies, and they talk about, the author says Jones. He's the guy with who was in the higher echelons of Pentagon, and he's professional officer, and he writes about empty bins in a wartime environment, the challenge to the U.S. defense industrial base. And again, you can look up about those challenges for many years to this industrial base, which actually shrinking dramatically. And so he is providing some kind of the, well, very bad forecasts for the situation with the U.S. armed forces and U.S. stocks, so to speak, because obviously they are empty. The bins are empty. The United States is not capable of producing enough of anything, be that aircraft, missiles, what have you, to fight serious enemy. And we can go on describing the main reasons for that, and there are many. There is never only one. There are always many reasons to do that. But look at this. Here's what he talks about in terms of their stocks. He presents some statistics on the stocks of their weapon and weapon systems which were sent to Ukraine, for example. And this is just some of it. You can download this report easily. It's obviously unclassified, and you can see yourself the tables of everything. And as you can see yourself, when you look at the Javelin, for example, low, status of U.S. inventory low, particularly for common launch unit. Stinger low, 155 howitzers low, so 155 artillery rounds low, and you go over this, most of it low, and their contracts have not been even renewed. The reason they haven't been renewed because the United States simply doesn't have the capability. Here is another thing from Statista which also has to be read very accurately. He provides the data from Statista.com on their global casting production by country. You know what casting is. It's basically molten metal which is poured into some complex shapes from which you can make just about anything. So, and again, for some reason he takes the Statista data from between 2018 and 2020. I don't know why he misses 2021 and 2022, which are crucial because Russia is increasing production dramatically. But even here, you can see yourself a little bit of the correlation between Russian and United States casting production in 2018. And as you can see yourself, Russia produced at that time about half of the United States, what United States produced. But obviously Russia increased it dramatically. But even this speaks about, and we already spoke about how much steel Russia produces. It's about the same amount as the United States. So Russia has all necessary both resources and facilities and command and control and on the national level to increase dramatically production of just about anything. And that has been done. And then, of course, he introduces this guy. We obviously know Mr. Hodges is not necessarily a competent person, but the United States is not the only country facing a munition challenge, they conclude. In a recent war game involving US, UK, and French forces titled Warfighter 21-4, the United Kingdom's 3rd Division exhausted national stockpiles of critical munitions in just over a week. US Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commanding general of U.S. Army Europe, remarked that in about 8 days of exercise, every bit of important ammunition in the British Army inventory was expended. So you can see yourself also there how fast the inventory of JASSM's AR extended range and LRASM will be expanded. Evidently, in air campaign days, by the 8th day, they will have nothing left. And this is granted that the planes will be flying, and here's we talking about the strategic planning and the fact how the United States and the combined West found itself in this trap. Well, they do not know how to strategically plan because they, as I already stated, they operate on garbage in and they get garbage out on the exit, as an outcome. And they thought that in February those sanctions which they were preparing would crush Russia. They tried one package, then second, then third, and yeah, then now we have the European economy crumbling, United States in a deep, deep hole economically right now. And don't tell me that I didn't warn about it. I was warning about this thing since 2014. And I am, quoting myself. They don't even know what they got themselves into because they don't. They never knew. They are that incompetent. We are looking at the utter incompetence of elites, military, scientific, political. I'm not talking about media. Media is a euphemism for being incompetent, if not outright moron. Modern Western media especially. So, with some obviously important exceptions. So there you go. And now they find themselves in their this mode that they need to throw something to be seen doing something. They sent all those, howitzers, all those Bradleys, and they probably will push and Germany, because Germany is a lapdog. They're not subject, they are object. And eventually United States will make them send those Leopards. Those Leopards will be burnt in industrial number, whatever they're going to send. If they send 80, the 80s, I don't know, 80, 85 Leopards, how long they will last? Not long. And especially when you look at, especially what kind of the munitions Russians use, including Krasnopol, for example. Then the United States says, you know what, these were not Abrams which were burning there. So Germans, do you see how shitty your tanks are? So buy our tanks, Abrams. Because obviously the myth of the Abrams have been created, no matter that they will be burning as well as the Leopard, but you know what, they at least can say, you buy now our tanks. The same, they will twist German hands the same way they twisted them in buying this lame duck F-35, which some people still continue to masturbate on this. I mean, national disgrace, really. This is ridiculous. But yeah, you still have some fanboys who, went through their master's degree program on the Top Gun Maverick School of Advanced Military Studies, and they still think that this is basically legitimate aircraft. Of course, sure. What do I know? So, and this is what I wanted to tell you about, that we have the situation that the combined West run itself into the trap. Because they are not very smart, they are not very well educated, they are very incompetent on the issues of real warfare and real economy. And now they have to live with these consequences because it is about saving face, obviously. And they are sending whatever they have handy, and guess what? There are many calls now from all corners of NATO, including from Germany, for example, that, you know what, we are basically leaving ourselves naked. We have nothing to spare. And they don't, believe me. So, and hey, as I already stated, read the Russian ultimatum in the end of November, early December 2021. Remember what was told there? I'm telling you, NATO has to return to the borders of 1997. How can you do that? Well, you have to basically denatoize the NATO. And now even some serious people begin to say, you know what? Ukraine it's understandable. Russians already annihilating the third iteration of the armed forces of Ukraine. But we are looking at basically demilitarization of the NATO. And this is an existential problem for NATO. Because obviously neither US economy, let alone European economy, are ready to fight real war. They never have been, honestly. They were producing this incredibly expensive and on very many occasions, absolutely useless weapon systems. And now they face their basically existential threat. And, well, they try to react as they always do, hysterically and knee-jerk. And when you look at the system basically, I call it system. It's indeed a system of those reports and warnings. Nobody heeded them. In Congress, in administration, they don't, because what you have there, you have humanities dumped down people who graduated all those Ivy League and other supposedly prestigious schools, like Boris Johnson. He has a degree in philology, I believe, English literature. What do you expect from him? Not only he looks like moron, he is one. And in this case, what can I say? You cannot communicate with those people. They don't understand the reason, and most of them are just basically driven by ambition and egos larger than cathedrals. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you today about, because this is very important in understanding what is going on and why there is this air of desperation. And I'm not talking about the stand-up comedy from Millie and from Austin about this offensive towards Melitopol by Visu, but hey, you know what? I wish George Carlin was still around. Anyhow, this was my talk for you today, guys, and please, as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel and support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee or two. So, guys, this is my talk for you today. Have a nice week. Bye-bye.